A single torch flickers in the vast silence of an underground cavern. Ice hangs in delicate crystal spears from the ceiling. Shadows stretch long across the stone, and then it emerges, a wheel immense, impossible, half buried in frozen rock. Its spokes are carved from an age no record remembers, glowing with a golden light that should not exist in this place of eternal cold. What is this machine? It does not belong to the world we know. It is older than the cavern that hides it, older, perhaps, than the mountains themselves. What if this is not merely a relic, but a remnant of something greater? A message from a history erased, a history that has been wiped away, ... and begun again. To search for answers, we must first set aside the noise of the present. Let your breath fall into rhythm, slow and steady. Let the stillness of the cavern become the stillness of your own mind. And together, let us follow the echoes of forgotten worlds into the question, what if history has been reset more than once? Imagine, for a moment, standing in that cavern, staring at the impossible glow of the machine. The faint hum resonates not only through the stone, but through your very chest, as though your heartbeat itself is trying to synchronize with something older, something far greater than you. This is not simply a discovery, it is a confrontation. Before you lies an object that defies time, and with it, a question that challenges everything we believe about history. What if the story of our world has been rewritten, not once, but many times? What if what we call history is merely the latest chapter in an endless series of books, each erased before the next began? To truly grasp the enormity of that possibility, let us step back, not decades, not centuries, but millions of years. Our species, Homo sapiens, is young. We measure our history in a handful of thousands of years, yet the Earth has been alive for billions. In those immense stretches of time, continents have risen and sunk, climates have shifted from blazing tropics to frozen ice ages, and life itself has been extinguished in great waves of extinction, only to bloom again in unfamiliar forms. Against this backdrop, our fragile memory clay tablets, scrolls, digital archives, less than a whisper. Time is not simply long, it is merciless, and this is the immense obstacle. If history has been reset, how would we even know? What chance would a memory, a fragment, a tool, or a monument have against the crushing machinery of geological time? Consider this: human cities are built of steel, glass, and concrete. Yet geologists estimate that within 10,000 years, barely a blink in Earth's calendar, our skyscrapers will have collapsed, our roads will have crumbled, and our plastic waste will be buried beneath new layers of sediment. Within 1,000,000 years, the continents will have shifted, glaciers may have scraped our cities from the map, and volcanoes may have buried every trace beneath molten stone. 10 million years from now, even the most enduring of our structures would be ground into dust. What then could survive the passage of not just one cycle, but many? This is why the obstacle is nearly perfect. A reset does not simply erase records. It erases memory itself. Imagine a library burning, but not only the paper turning to ash. Imagine the very walls of the library dissolving, the ground swallowing its foundations, and the earth itself rearranging until no one could ever know a library stood there at all. That is the challenge we face when we ask whether history has been reset, and yet whispers remain. Not proof, not certainty, but the faintest echoes. A strange anomaly in the rock, a myth carried across oceans, a structure that defies explanation. These are the threads we must follow, fragile and easily dismissed, yet persistent enough to make us wonder. Because if there is even a hint that our story is not the first, then we must reconsider everything: who we are, where we came from, and whether we are destined to repeat what has come before. Pause now. Let the weight of that thought settle in you like a stone dropped into deep water. Breathe slowly. The present moment, the rhythm of your chest rising and falling, is but a fragile bubble floating atop an ocean of forgotten ages. You are drifting gently down into that ocean, into layers of time that do not care for human memory. Feel the silence deepen around you. The cavern, the mechanism, the faint golden glow, all fades into the quiet vastness of time itself. Let us wander deeper into this idea, as though we are following faint footprints in sand that the tide is already beginning to wash away. Consider what it means for a civilization, any civilization, to disappear. Ours feels permanent because we are surrounded by its evidence: the hum of electricity, the glow of screens, the weight of airplanes carving paths across the sky. But permanence is an illusion. Remove electricity, and within days, cities turn dark. Remove supply chains, and within weeks, food runs out. Within years, buildings crumble. Within centuries, forests reclaim the land. Within millennia, only the faintest scars remain, visible only to a trained eye. In the end, the earth does not preserve our memory, it consumes it. This is why resets are not merely possible, they may be inevitable. Catastrophe has struck our planet many times before. The dinosaurs, rulers of the earth for over 150 million years, were extinguished in a matter of days when an asteroid struck. The Permian extinction, 250 million years ago, wiped out more than 90% of life. If entire ecosystems, entire kingdoms of life, can vanish so utterly, why not civilizations? And if civilizations have risen before us, why should we believe they would be spared the same fate? The obstacle grows even more daunting when we consider scale. A single human lifetime measures time in decades. A civilization measures time in centuries, but the Earth measures time in millions of years, and the universe measures time in billions. Against that immensity, everything we build is as fragile as sandcastles at the edge of the sea. The tide always comes. The question is not if it will wash away our creations, but when. And if it has come before, then perhaps it has come many times. Now, let us return to the cavern, to the machine glowing in the dark. What if such an object were real? How would it survive when so little else can? Perhaps it lies deep beneath the earth, protected by stone. Perhaps it was designed to last, built of materials unknown to us, or encoded not in matter at all, but in patterns of energy. Or perhaps it was never meant to survive. Perhaps it is only an accident, a forgotten remnant of a story erased long ago. The obstacle of time is immense, but not perfect. Sometimes fragments slip through, and it is those fragments we must follow. But even fragments are treacherous. A stone may look ordinary until you realize it has been cut with impossible precision. A legend may sound like fantasy until you hear the same story told by people who never met, across oceans, across centuries. A pattern in ice may look random until you realize it records cycles longer than all of written history. These are the kinds of traces we must examine, each one fragile, incomplete, but together forming a suggestion, a whisper of something more. The real obstacle, then, is not only the destruction of evidence, but the silence it leaves behind. Silence is heavy. Silence is persuasive. It convinces us that what we see is all that has ever been. But silence can also deceive. For just as a missing piece in a puzzle tells us something about what is absent, so too does silence tell us that something may have been erased. The task before us is to listen carefully to that silence, to learn what it hides. Imagine the earth as a vast palimpsest parchment on which stories are written, erased, and rewritten again. Each cycle overwrites the last, yet faint marks remain beneath the new text. A scholar with patience and careful tools can sometimes glimpse what was written before. So too with history. If we learn to read the scars, the anomalies, the inexplicable, we may begin to see the faint outlines of forgotten chapters. And so, our journey begins not with answers, but with questions. What if we are not the first to walk this path of technology, culture, and collapse? What if our cities are merely the latest bloom in a long cycle of growth and erasure? What if history itself has been reset, not once, but many times? To seek answers is to confront the immensity of time, the cruelty of erasure, and the fragility of memory. But it is also to step into wonder, to realize that we may be part of something far greater, far older than we have ever imagined. Now, let your breathing slow. Feel the quiet around you. We are only at the beginning of this journey, standing before the immense obstacle of erasure. Ahead lies the search, the forensic hunt for echoes. But for now, linger here. Linger in the cavern, in the silence, in the possibility that history is not a single thread, but a tapestry woven and unwoven countless times. Linger in the thought that the glow of the machine is not just light, but memory itself, flickering across the ages, inviting us to remember what has been forgotten. The cavern fades. The glow of the impossible machine dissolves into darkness. In its place, we are left with a question, a silence, and a task. If history has been reset, perhaps more than once, what traces could possibly remain? The obstacle of time is merciless, but even silence can leave scars. The earth itself is a witness, and though it rarely speaks, sometimes it whispers. To listen is to become a detective, searching for faint clues scattered across stone, story, and memory. Tonight, let us follow those whispers together, slowly, gently, as though walking along a shoreline at night, guided only by the moonlight. When archaeologists search for civilizations, they look for artifacts, spots, tools, bones, walls. But artifacts are fragile. They crumble, burn, dissolve, and vanish. If resets have occurred not once, but many times, then artifacts may not be enough. We must look for something deeper, something less obvious, something that cannot be erased so easily. Not objects, but scars. A scar is not a thing. It is a mark, an absence, a distortion. It tells us that something once happened here, something powerful enough to leave a wound. On Earth, such scars can be found not just in ruins, but in landscapes, in rocks, in the patterns of rivers and seas. A meteor strike leaves a crater that endures for millions of years. A volcanic eruption lays down layers of ash that settle into the fossil record. Even when all else is gone, these scars remain. They are the Earth's memory, subtle but indelible. So instead of searching for objects, we search for patterns. Not the shard of pottery, but the sudden shift in climate that forced people to abandon pottery altogether. Not the tool itself, but the layer of strange isotopes buried in rock, telling us of a catastrophe, a firestorm, a flood. To look for resets, we must learn to read the planet as though it were a body covered in scars, each one a story, each one a memory of a time before. Among the scars that endure, few are as striking as the cycles of catastrophe. When we examine geological records, ice cores, and ancient sediments, we find patterns, disruptions that repeat with eerie regularity. Massive floods, sudden climate shifts, magnetic pole reversals, asteroid impacts. To the casual eye, these may seem like accidents of nature, but when placed side by side, they begin to look like something else. A rhythm, a drumbeat echoing across time. Consider the ice cores drilled from Greenland and Antarctica. Within their frozen layers, year after year of snowfall has been preserved, compacted into a timeline stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Within those cores, scientists find spikes sharp, sudden shifts in temperature and atmospheric composition. Some of these shifts align with known catastrophes, like asteroid strikes or volcanic eruptions. Others remain unexplained. Yet what is most striking is the frequency. Catastrophe does not happen randomly. It happens in cycles. Now imagine a civilization caught in one of these cycles. A people thriving, building, dreaming, and then suddenly the world shifts. Temperatures plummet, oceans rise, the skies darken with ash, crops fail, cities collapse, memories are lost, survivors scatter, carrying fragments of their culture like seeds in the wind. Over time, those fragments become myths, half-remembered tales of floods, fires, and gods. And in the silence that follows, the earth heals, covering the scars, preparing for the next cycle. Civilization rises again, believing itself the first. The great obstacle is not simply survival, but recognition. How could survivors of such a catastrophe know that they were not the first? They would see ruins, but they would not know if those ruins belonged to their ancestors or to strangers. They would see scars, but not the stories that caused them. And so, each cycle begins anew, unaware of those that came before. If the earth carries scars in stone, humanity carries scars in story. Across the world, among peoples who never met, who lived oceans apart, we find strangely similar myths. Stories of floods that swallowed the land. Stories of gods who descended from the sky, bringing knowledge and fire. Stories of a golden age, long lost, when humanity lived in peace and abundance, until pride or disaster brought it all to ruin. The flood myth alone is nearly universal. From Mesopotamia's Epic of Gilgamesh, to the biblical tale of Noah, to the Aztec story of a world destroyed by water, to the myths of Aboriginal Australians and Native Americans, the theme is the same. The world ends in water. A few survive, and from them the story begins again. These are not isolated tales. They are echoes, fragments of memory carried across time, distorted but persistent. What if they are not merely imagination, but remembrance? What if they are the voices of survivors speaking to us from cycles long past? Myths of gods descending from the sky are equally intriguing. Again and again, we hear of beings who bring knowledge, agriculture, astronomy, architecture. Quetzalcoatl among the Aztecs, Osiris among the Egyptians, Viracocha among the Andeans. Were these simply deities or memories of visitors? Perhaps not from the stars, but from an earlier age of humanity, survivors of a reset returning to rebuild. The stories are too consistent to ignore, even if they are cloaked in symbolism. To dismiss myth as fantasy is to underestimate memory. Memory does not need precision to endure. It needs only repetition. A story told and retold across generations becomes a container, holding within it fragments of truth. Like a broken mirror, each shard reflects only part of the image, but together they hint at a larger whole. If we listen closely, with patience and humility, myths may guide us toward forgotten histories, but stories alone are not enough. For many, they are too fragile, too easy to dismiss. If resets have occurred, then surely something more tangible must remain. And so we look for what might be called technological fossils, the fingerprints of advanced knowledge preserved in places it does not belong. Sometimes these are called operts, out-of-place artifacts, reports of nails embedded in ancient stone, of objects resembling batteries found in Mesopotamian ruins, of microscopic structures within minerals that resemble manufactured alloys. Most of these claims are debated, disputed, or dismissed. Yet the very persistence of the stories is curious. Why do such anomalies appear again and again across the record? Even if only a fraction are real, even if only one is genuine, it would be enough to change everything. Beyond artifacts, there are patterns in architecture and engineering. Consider the precision of Puma Punku in Bolivia, where massive stones are cut with such accuracy that modern tools struggle to replicate them, or the astronomical alignments of ancient temples and monuments, built with knowledge that should have been beyond the reach of primitive societies. These may not be proof, but they are fingerprints marks of knowledge that does not fit neatly within our timeline. And then there are the whispers of materials. In coal seams tens of millions of years old, traces of metal sometimes appear, as though something once existed before the forests that became coal. In ancient rock, strange formations resembling nanostructures have been reported. Are these illusions of nature, or fossils of technologies long forgotten? The line is blurred, but the possibility remains, shimmering like the faint glow of the machine in the cavern. To follow these echoes is to become a detective of the impossible. Each clue is fragile, incomplete, contested. Each scar, myth, or artifact can be explained away by coincidence, by misinterpretation, by fraud, and yet, together, they form a pattern too haunting to ignore. A rhythm emerges: catastrophe, survival, myth, rebirth, a cycle, perhaps repeating for millions of years. If history has been reset more than once, then these are the faint footprints left behind, barely visible in the sand, already fading beneath the tide. This detective story is not one of certainty, but of wonder. It is not about proving beyond doubt that resets occurred, but about allowing ourselves to ask, what if? What if the flood myths are not allegories, but memories? What if the scars in ice and stone are not random, but rhythmic? What if the strange artifacts are not accidents, but fingerprints? To hold these questions is to open ourselves to the immensity of time, to see our own civilization not as the first, but as the latest bloom in an endless cycle of creation and erasure. And so, with patience, we follow the echoes. The cavern fades further, the machine grows dim. What remains is the rhythm of time, the scars on earth, the memory of myths, and the faint, impossible fingerprints of technology where none should exist. These are not answers, but invitations, gentle calls to listen more closely, to see more deeply, to wonder more freely. Breathe. Let the thought settle in you. Imagine the earth turning beneath the stars, not for decades or centuries, but for eons. Imagine civilizations rising and falling like waves against the shore. Imagine memories scattered like seeds, carried by myth, by scar, by fragment. And imagine yourself here, now, listening in the quiet, following those echoes into the deep night. We have searched for scars, for myths, for fossils of technology, and though none are conclusive, together they whisper of a truth too vast to dismiss. History may not be a single line, but a circle, turning and returning, each reset hiding the last. Ahead lies the task of grounding these whispers in reality and theories, in evidence, in enigmas that science itself struggles to explain. That will be our next step. But for now, linger here in the gentle wonder of the possibility. Linger in the detective's quiet pursuit of echoes. Linger in the thought that even silence speaks, if we learn how to listen. The echoes have led us far from the cavern, far from the golden hum of the impossible machine, into the delicate intersection of wonder and reality. If history has been reset more than once, then these whispers fragments of the past, myths, and anomalies must somehow be anchored in the world we can touch, measure, and observe. Let us take a slow, deliberate journey through 3 pathways where the evidence of resets might still exist. Events in nature, cycles of civilization, and structures that defy conventional explanation. Let us begin approximately 12,800 years ago, during a period known as the Younger Dryas. The Earth, having emerged from the last glacial period, was in transition. Forests spread, megafauna roamed, and humans began to establish communities capable of agriculture, hunting, and construction. Yet suddenly, the world changed. Temperatures plummeted, glaciers expanded, and vast regions became inhospitable. Ice cores, drilled from Greenland and Antarctica, reveal abrupt, dramatic shifts in climate layers of frozen snow and gas, preserving a record of sudden disaster. Some scientists propose that a comet or meteorite impact may have triggered these changes. Others debate the cause, but all agree the planet convulsed and life had to adapt or perish. Now imagine the perspective of a human civilization living at that time. Crops fail unexpectedly, water sources shift, stars themselves may appear differently through ash-filled skies. Survivors, scattered and desperate, may carry fragments of knowledge, skills, stories, tools that allow them to endure. Over generations, the stories mutate into myths. Practical skills become ritualized, memory fragments into allegory. Perhaps the extraordinary achievements of prior communities' advanced architecture, agricultural techniques, celestial knowledge are lost to us, leaving only whispers in geology and legend. The impact hypothesis is more than speculation. It is a window into the possibility that history itself has undergone abrupt resets, wiping clean civilizations that had existed long before the first known cities. Notice the patterns emerging. Catastrophe leaves traces, not complete records, not monuments to victory, but scars etched into ice, sediment, and stone. In this case, the earth becomes both historian and witness. The Younger Dryas is but one layer in a far longer story, a reminder that even the most sophisticated human endeavors are fleeting. Pause for a moment. Feel the cold of the ancient glacial winds sweeping over your mind. Imagine the survivors huddled by fires, looking at stars unchanged for millennia, wondering if the world has always been so merciless. The story continues into recorded history, where the rise and fall of civilizations illustrates fragility on a human scale. Consider the Roman Empire, sprawling and sophisticated, yet ultimately undone by a combination of internal decay, overextension, and environmental stress. Consider the Maya, whose cities were abandoned despite their advanced knowledge of astronomy, architecture, and mathematics, or the Indus Valley civilization, thriving with urban planning, drainage systems, and trade networks, only to vanish, leaving behind mud bricks and faint marks in river valleys. Historians debate the causes of these collapses. Some point to climate change, droughts, or resource depletion. Others emphasize warfare, disease, or political instability. Yet, what is fascinating is the pattern, the repeated cycle of growth, peak, and collapse. Civilizations rise with great ambition and knowledge, only to fall into ruin. Their stories survive in fragments, inscriptions, ruined buildings, myths of heroes and gods. And if we step back, considering millions of years instead of centuries, what we see as isolated collapses might be echoes of far larger cycles. Perhaps every civilization we know is a ripple in a vast ocean, each reset obscured by the passage of time, each era beginning unaware of the shadows it follows. Now, let us breathe deeply and reflect. Imagine humanity as a wave cresting upon the endless sea of history, our achievements bright but brief. The next wave rises, unaware of the previous, repeating patterns without memory. This is the rhythm of resetsa, slow, deliberate drumbeat of creation and destruction. It humbles us. It reminds us that permanence is an illusion, that even the most enduring cities are fragile against the scales of geological and cosmic time. Finally, we turn to stone and monument, where human hands have etched permanence into the world. Consider Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey, constructed approximately 12,000 years ago, predating agriculture and challenging assumptions about prehistoric societies. Massive pillars carved with precision stand in circles, their purpose still debated. Who built them? How did they transport such stones without advanced tools? The site suggests knowledge and social organization far beyond what we expected. Perhaps it is a survival of a previous cycle, a fragment of wisdom preserved across unknown resets. Or consider Puma Punku in Bolivia, massive stones, cut and fitted with extraordinary precision, defy explanation with known techniques of their presumed era. Even today, engineers struggle to replicate the precision. Could this be a remnant of an earlier civilization, a civilization reset and erased from collective memory? The stones themselves do not speak in words, but resonate with possibility. They are reminders that knowledge can persist even when societies vanish, that what is lost can leave only traces waiting for those patient enough to notice. There are whispers beyond the grand monuments, some ooparts, out-of-place artifacts, hint at technologies seemingly impossible for their era. Metallic structures in ancient coal seams, microscopic nanostructures embedded in stone, or anomalous metals in geological layers predating known human activity. These fragments are tantalizing, if controversial. Each demands slow consideration, gentle observation, and a willingness to wonder without insisting on certainty. The line between imagination and evidence blurs, and yet that blurring is where the mind can rest and explore freely, like drifting along a calm river at night. Here lies the beauty of grounding mystery in reality. We do not seek definitive proof, we seek resonance. Ice cores, myths, ruins, anomalous artifacts, they are threads, delicate but persistent, connecting what we know to what we suspect. By moving slowly, by observing patterns, by contemplating without rush, we create a mental space where wonder and understanding coexist. In that space, we feel small, fragile, yet expansive, aware of both our fleeting presence and the grandeur of cycles beyond comprehension. Breathe. Imagine the earth turning beneath you slowly over millennia. Imagine civilizations rising and falling like waves on a cosmic shoreline. Imagine the stories carried across generations, mutated into myths, passed on, retold, and yet still whispering fragments of truth. Imagine monuments standing in silent testimony, their meaning partly obscured, but their presence undeniable. All these form a faint, shimmering outline of cycles hidden beneath what we call history. And yet, we do not rush to conclusions. We linger. The evidence is imperfect, sometimes contradictory, and yet beautiful in its ambiguity. It invites reflection, meditation, and calm. We float along timelines far beyond personal memory, guided by curiosity, wonder, and the subtle pulse of the earth itself. Pause now. Feel the quiet. Feel the slow, deliberate movement of time, of civilizations, of memory itself. Let the fragments settle in your mind. Let the cycles of creation and collapse wash over you like waves, gentle and rhythmic. Even in silence, echoes persist if only we are willing to listen. Here, in this intersection of imagination and evidence, we find a place to rest, a bridge between the impossible machine in the cavern and the traces left in ice, stone, and story. We are calm, attentive, aware, and suspended between what has been and what may yet be. And in that stillness, we prepare for the next stage of our journey, the philosophical reflection, the gentle landing, the descent into sleep. The detective work of our journey, the study of scars, myths, and enigmatic structures, now gives way to reflection. Imagine yourself seated in the quiet cavern, the glow of the impossible machine gently fading into a soft, lingering warmth. The shadows stretch long across the ancient stone, and the silence envelops you like a thick, comforting blanket. Take a slow breath in. Feel the cool, still air fill your lungs. Hold it for a heartbeat, and then exhale, releasing any tension, any urgency, any fragments of the present that cling to your mind. Let the rhythm of your breath become your anchor, connecting you to both the immediate moment and the vast expanse of time that lies beyond. Our journey began in that cavern, with the golden glow of the impossible Wheeler relic, older than the mountains themselves. It hummed not merely as a machine, but as a messenger, vibrating through stone and through the unseen currents of time. From that single, impossible object, we were led into the investigation of echoes, the traces that remain after civilizations vanish, after resets erase histories and memories alike. We walked the ice core of Greenland and Antarctica, tracing sudden temperature shifts and atmospheric anomalies, reading them as the faint fingerprints of catastrophes that recur with eerie precision. We listened to myths whispered across continents, tales of floods, gods, and golden ages, stories that carry fragments of memory passed down through countless generations, distorted yet persistent. And we examined enigmatic structures and technological anomalized massive stones cut with impossible precision, strange metallic traces embedded in coal seams, architectural feats that challenge our understanding of ancient knowledge. Each thread, fragile on its own, formed a tapestry of possibility. Together, they hinted at a rhythm, a cadence of creation and erasure that might stretch far beyond the limits of recorded history. The questions we asked were not simple ones, and the answers, if they exist at all, remain elusive. Yet the act of seeking, the quiet contemplation, the willingness to imagine beyond what is known, brought us closer to a sense of wonder that is both humbling and expansive. Now, consider the scale. Human life, even human civilization, is but a brief flicker. Centuries pass, empires rise and fall, and yet the earth endures, indifferent and patient. Mountains rise, erode, and vanish. Oceans carve canyons into stone, then retreat, leaving dry valleys where nothing seems permanent. Glaciers advance and withdraw, reshaping continents. Volcanic eruptions bury landscapes in molten rock, and beneath it all, life itself surges and recedes, adapting, mutating, and sometimes disappearing entirely. Against this backdrop, our achievements, our cities, our monuments, our technology are fragile, ephemeral. Time does not protect memory. It erases, recycles, and conceals. Pause for a moment. Let your awareness drift to the immensity of these eons. Imagine the earth turning slowly beneath your feet, indifferent to individual lives, yet patient enough to preserve the faintest hints of cycles past. Imagine the stars above, their light traveling across millions of years, illuminating the silent surface of the planet. Feel the humility this perspective brings, and in that humility find a gentle peace. For though human endeavors are fleeting, the act of witnessing, of being conscious in this brief moment, is profound in its own right. History is often told as a linear progression, a story of inevitable advancement, as though each generation builds upon the last in a continuous ascent toward enlightenment. But the evidence we have explored suggests a different narrative. Imagine civilizations that flourished long before recorded history, leaving only whispers behind. Imagine that their knowledge, their technologies, their culture were lost to a catastrophic event, a geological upheaval, or some other force beyond comprehension. Each reset would erase not just structures, but ideas, innovations, and stories. Yet some traces survive, subtle and persistent, in myths, in patterns, in stone, in the rhythm of geological and astronomical phenomena. There is a profound lesson in impermanence. To embrace the fragility of human achievement is not to despair, but to awaken to its significance. Every act of creation, every discovery, every moment of insight is precious precisely because it is temporary. Each civilization, each person, each thought contributes to a pattern that may be erased, but also echoes forward in ways we cannot fully trace. This impermanence teaches humility, patience, and the quiet appreciation of life's fleeting beauty. Reflect now on our own civilization. The cities with their towering skyscrapers, the glowing screens, the networks of knowledge and communication, these are marvels of ingenuity. And yet, beneath them lies the same earth that has swallowed countless civilizations before us. A shift in climate, a catastrophic event, or the slow erosion of time could erase them entirely. And yet, within that fragility lies resilience. Humanity has endured, adapted, and rebuilt before. Perhaps, in some mysterious way, we carry echoes of those who rose before us, survivors of previous cycles, inheriting the capacity to learn, to rebuild, to remember, even when memory itself has been erased. There is also a subtle beauty in recognizing that fragility. Impermanence does not diminish achievement. It gives it depth, poignancy, and urgency. It reminds us to cherish the present, to act with intention, to understand that we are part of a vast, continuing cycle. In the cycles of rise and fall, loss and rebirth, we find the rhythm of life itself. Each human endeavor is a note in the symphony of existence, brief yet resonant. Now, allow the mind to descend gently into meditation. Imagine the cavern dissolving into layers of time itself. See the earth turning slowly beneath a star-filled sky. The golden hum of the machine fades, leaving only a faint trace of warmth. Picture rivers carving valleys, glaciers shifting across continents, forests reclaiming ruins. Observe without judgment. There is no urgency, no need to solve the mysteries. Simply watch, simply breathe, simply exist within the vastness of cycles. Feel your body synchronize with these rhythms. Let each breath mirror the slow pulse of time. The rise and fall of your chest, the gentle expansion and contraction of lungs, reflect the endless cycles of creation and collapse. Let thoughts settle like sediment in a still pond, each ripple calming as it fades. The present moment is all that is required, yet it carries within it the echoes of eternity. As the reflection deepens, allow a sense of awe to settle. We have glimpsed impossible machines, traced echoes in ice and stone, listened to myths across continents, and marveled at structures that challenge understanding. Yet now there is nothing to solve, nothing to prove. Rest in the quiet knowing that you are part of this vast, repeating story. Sleep becomes the natural extension of this reflectioner reset, a letting go, a gentle folding into the rhythm of existence. Visualize one final image, the cosmic wheel turning slowly, illuminating forgotten worlds beneath a sky full of stars. Golden light fades into night. The earth, patient and enduring, carries cycles of creation and collapse. You, aware and calm, sink into this vastness, carried gently by the rhythm of time. Let the wonder, humility, and quiet reflection flow through you. guiding the mind into rest. This was another story in the endless river of time, and now let it carry you gently into sleep. Good night, dreamer of ages.